Hi, good evening. Welcome to St. Peter's in Hove, and I think we're on day 7 of our little talks about funerals and why they're important. One of the things today that we have a bit of a problem with is that people don't really want to talk about funerals very much not because they dislike funerals, but because they dislike the idea of death. We're all going to die, and therefore a funeral is part of life. Our act of dying is part of our life. And if you like, the funeral is a sort of epilogue of our life, the closing chapter of our life, the signing off. Therefore, not talking about funerals, not thinking about funerals, and not wanting to go to funerals is something that leaves our experience of life rather incomplete. I always feel if you know somebody well and you miss their funeral for whatever reason, then you're somehow lacking. There's something, something's not been finished off. The account has not been completely closed with that person. Quite often, when I was living abroad, when I was in Africa, it always pained me that great friends of mine happened to die in England, and I wasn't able to go to their funeral. I wasn't able to be there. And of course, it's important for us to witness the closing of the life, to witness what they call in vulgar terms, the send-off. That's one of the reasons, incidentally, why a lot of people will want to witness Prince Philip's funeral, because they see it as an end of an era, and the funeral as being the proper closing of the era. Now, what I want to talk about today really is this, the importance of going to funerals. The Book of Tobit clearly talks about funerals being very important, and traditionally we always have regarded funerals as important, although this tradition has rather become attenuated of late. I think we should go to funerals. That's the most important thing. If somebody in our community dies, we should go to the funeral. It is the custom, or at least it used to be the custom, that if you were at work, the funeral would be happening on such and such a day. You'd be told when the funeral would be happening, and you'd go to your employer and say, I've got to go to a funeral. And the employer would say, sure. The employer would never object to the employee being absent for a funeral. That was because the people organising the funeral, the mourners, had absolute priority. So they would say the funeral's on Wednesday at 2 p.m. and people would never say, oh, I can't come, because everything could be cancelled in favour of the funeral. That shows how important funerals were. Nowadays, we've got this rather lamentable custom of ringing round all the friends and relatives saying when's a convenient date for the funeral. No, we don't tailor the funeral to fit in with us. We fit in with the funeral. The other thing is, we should go, whose funeral should we go to? Well, anybody we know, really. If you're part of a parish and a parishioner you know dies, you should try and go to the funeral. Okay, you may have work commitments and so on. If you have no work commitments, you've got no excuse not to go to the funeral. One of the first parishes I was ever in, there was a very pious couple. May God be good to them now, because I'm sure they've both gone to their reward. In fact, the man went to his reward because I did his funeral. A very, very pious couple. And they went to every funeral that happened in the parish. And that was actually about one a week, because it was a big parish. Why did they do that? Because going to a funeral is a sign of showing that you care about the dead person, you care about the survivors, you care about the mourners. It's a way of showing your respects for the person who has died, and it's also praying for the dead. It is a corporal work of mercy. That is the point I'm coming to. The corporal works of mercy, giving drink to the thirsty, food to the hungry, harbouring the homeless and things like that. Burial of the dead is a corporal work of mercy. And this is low-hanging fruit. We can all bury the dead. We just have to go to the funeral and be part of that action of the burial of the dead. And that gains us great merit in the sight of God. So every time you have a chance to go to a funeral, don't miss that chance. It's a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to do a corporal work of mercy, to do a great act of charity. And people may not mention it, but they'll appreciate the fact that you've been there. Now, just as a postscript, really, when I say go to a funeral, I think everybody should go to a funeral. There's been and to my mind, lamentable development in recent years is that children do not go to funerals. No, they're too young, they don't understand, it'll upset them, and it's much better that they should not think of their grandfather, grandmother lying in the coffin and so on and so forth. Traditionally, children always went to funerals. And I think that modern children should go to funerals, contemporary children, because otherwise, if you don't go to a funeral as a child or a teenager, what will happen is that you may discover that you're an adult and you've never been to a funeral before. And therefore, you've got to start going sometime. And you might find, lamentably, that you go to your parents' funeral as the first funeral you've ever been to. You won't be used to going to funerals. So I think it's a really good idea that children from the youngest possible age should go to funerals, because funerals, as I said at the beginning, are part of life. And therefore, we don't hide them away. They must be public events, and they're events for the whole family. So I think children should go to funerals. But I do realise, and I fully accept, that parents will make that decision. They're your children, after all, parents. You're the ones who are the primary educators of your children, so it'll be up to you. But my advice would be bring the children along to the funeral. I've done funerals of adults where very small children have been present. And I've actually done funerals of children, of parents whose children have been present when those children have been very young. And I think it was obviously difficult for the children to be there to see their mother or father being buried. But I think it would have been even harder for the children not to have been there. People often talk about, don't they, talking of royal funerals, how Prince Harry and Prince William followed their mother's coffin, and it must have been hard for them. Yeah, nobody's denying that. It would have been hard for them. But at the same time, it would have been even more hard for them not to have followed the coffin. It was something they obviously felt they had to do. And I think it was a good thing that they did it. I think it will be something, a source of comfort to them now, many years later, that they did it. That's enough for today. All the very best. Bye from St. Peter's in Hove. Bye.